In this video, I will cover everything that you need to know about the Medicare ABN form. Now, if you have original Medicare with or without a Medicare supplement, you will occasionally be asked to sign a form called an Advanced Beneficiary Notice, or ABN form for short. So what is an ABN form? Why is it required? And what are your choices when presented with one? When should you decline to sign the form? I will cover all of that and more in this video on everything that you need to know about the Medicare ABN form. Hi, I'm Matthew Clausen, CEO of MedigapSeminars.org. We are one of the premier independent insurance brokerages in the country specializing in Medicare. Our services are free to you, the consumer. Our goal is to help you make an informed decision regarding your Medicare and to help you manage your Medicare in the years ahead. If you find this content helpful or informative, please press the like button and leave a comment to show your appreciation. Of course, YouTube channel subscribers will be among the first to see the new videos on Medicare that I publish regularly. So don't miss out. Please subscribe now before you forget. Let's talk about the ABN form. The ABN, or Advanced Beneficiary Notice, is a form that has two important purposes. First, it informs you, the Medicare beneficiary, that it's possible Medicare will not cover a service or a procedure that you're about to have. And to be clear, if original Medicare will not cover it, neither will your supplement. Second, it protects the Medicare provider in that it guarantees that they will be paid if Medicare does not cover the service or procedure. It guarantees that you will pay them if Medicare doesn't. Now, we often get questions asking, does Medicare cover this or does Medicare cover that? My answer is that that's the wrong question. The real question should be why. Why are you having this service or procedure? That will answer whether or not Medicare will cover it. Let me explain. The intent of Medicare is to cover everything that's medically necessary. Original Medicare will rely on your doctor for that determination. For example, you can't just walk into an MRI center and ask for an MRI and expect Medicare to pay for it. Medicare covers MRIs, but only when your doctor determines that it's medically necessary. An MRI is only necessary when other less expensive diagnostic measures have proved inadequate for your doctor's needs. So, if there is a medical procedure or service that is, under the right circumstances, covered by Medicare, but may not be in your case, the medical provider will request you sign an ABN form just in case Medicare doesn't pay for it. You will find ABN forms are used most commonly when you're having preventive services or lab work. But let's take a look at the standard ABN form first, and then talk about when you should not sign it and how to manage your Medicare so you're not surprised when you're presented with an ABN form to review and to sign. So let's take a look. This is a standard ABN form as of 2024. This form is due for an update no earlier than January of 2026. Your medical practitioner may have their own form, but it must have all of the features of this form. I have a link to this form in the show notes below, or you can search for form CMS-R-131 on the internet. When you're presented with an ABN form to sign, Medicare requires that it be filled out completely by your provider before being presented to you. If it is not filled in properly, I will discuss in a moment what you need to do and why. There are only two sections that can be left blank, so let's take a close look at this. On the top of the form, Section A is who is presenting you with the ABN to sign. Section B is your name. Your name is required to be identical to how your name is written on your Medicare card. Section C is an ID number. This is one of the two sections that can be left blank. Your medical provider may use your Medicare ID number or have their own system for their filing purposes. Section D is the name of the service or procedure in question. It may include more than one item and must be written everywhere marked with the letter D on this form and detailed in this box. Now, Section E, as in echo, is for the reason your provider believes this procedure may not be covered. And this is important. If the service is preventive care, they'll likely write something about the test frequency. Preventive care with original Medicare has specific frequency limits. For example, you can have a mammogram once per year, which means there must be at least 365 days between exams. Or if your doctor determines that you're at risk for diabetes, you can have an A1C test up to twice per year. Keep in mind, this is preventive care. Preventive means that you do not have and your doctor does not suspect you have the underlying condition. Once you have a condition or are suspected to, then you're not constrained by the frequency limits because the test is no longer preventive. And that means that you can have the test as your doctor prescribes and it should be covered by Medicare. Section F, as in Foxtrot, is the estimated cost of the service or procedure. And again, this is important. Medicare rules required that the estimated cost be within 25% or $100 of the actual cost. If Medicare does not pay for the service, you cannot be charged more than the estimated cost shown in this section F. That's not allowed. Now, before we move on, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos on Medicare coverage. Thank you in advance. So Section G, as in golf, is for you. You must select one of these three choices. So let's go over them one at a time. Option 1. Now this is the choice that you're going to make most often. And it reads, I want the service as described in Part D. So it just says I want the service D, but that's where your service should be written in. So I want the service listed above. And you may ask to be paid now, but I also want Medicare to be billed for an official decision on payment, which is sent to me on a Medicare Summary Notice, or MSN. I understand that if Medicare does not pay, I am responsible for payment, but I can appeal to Medicare by following the directions on the Medicare Summary Notice. If Medicare does pay, you will refund any payments I made to you, less copays or deductibles. So I'll go over how to appeal shortly. Most providers will not ask for payment up front, but some do, and signing this form gives them the right to do so. With this choice, the provider will send a bill to Medicare requesting it be covered, and Medicare will make that determination. Option 2. I want the described, the procedure or service listed above, but do not bill Medicare. You may ask to be paid now as I'm responsible for payment. I cannot appeal if Medicare is not billed. Now, personally, I can't see any reason to choose this option unless you're 100% confident that the service is not ever going to be covered by Medicare and you're prepared to pay at that moment. Option 3. I don't want the service or procedure listed above. I understand that with this choice, I'm responsible for payment and I cannot appeal to see if Medicare would pay. You're declining the recommended service or procedure. Now, if there's a reason not to get this service, this is the selection that you would make. It may be the potential cost is out of your budget range and you don't want the risk of being liable for the bill. Then this is the selection you would make. Now this box, section H, as in hotel, is the other section that is not required to be completed. It can be blank. However, sometimes the provider giving you this ABN form to sign is not the end biller. For example, you may have your blood work drawn for tests while you're at your doctor's office, but the blood is sent to a separate lab like Quest Diagnostics for evaluation. In cases like that, that detail should be documented here in Section H. It should detail that the provider who presented this ABN to you is not the entity that will bill you. Of course, then you sign and date the form. And please make certain you get a copy of this form before you leave the office and or take a photo of it with your phone. Now, Medicare requires the provider to keep a copy on file for 5 years. So what if you refuse to sign the form? What if they ask you to sign it before it's filled out? Should you sign a document with blank spots? And what if you thought Medicare would cover the procedure and they don't? How do you appeal? If you refuse to sign the form, the provider may decline to provide the service. Or if they do provide the service, then you might get billed. Mayo Clinic, for example, provides these instructions if you decide not to sign. If you refuse to sign, one of two actions will take place. One, Mayo Clinic may decide not to provide the items or services. Or two, a second person will witness your refusal to sign the agreement and you will receive the items or services. However, you may be held liable because you have been notified of the likelihood of a Medicare denial. So that's pretty clear cut. If you want the procedure, you should sign the ABN form. Now, what if you're presented with an ABN form that is not completed? And this changes things. Medicare's instructions to providers is very clear. If they present you with an ABN form that is not filled in, as I've just reviewed, then the provider is financially responsible for the cost of the procedure. If you are presented with a blank or partially completed ABN form, I suggest handing it back to your provider and letting them know that this is not allowed by Medicare. Please complete this form first. Now, if you're feeling feisty, you can also take a photo of it and sign it and use it in an appeal later on. For some of the things we've seen, I've seen where when people have tried to appeal things, that what's happened is with some clients is that the estimated cost is not completed. And that way, if Medicare does not approve the procedure, the less than honest medical provider can write in a high cost on the form and insist that you signed for it and accepted it. Remember, they cannot charge more than that cost that they estimated. If that portion of the ABN is blank and you can prove it, well, it's like a get out of jail free card. Now, if you find out that Medicare will not cover your procedure, you can appeal. You have 120 days after receiving your Medicare summary notice, which includes the information that you should need for an appeal. So you have 120 days to file the appeal. In order to appeal, you fill out a form called a redetermination request. Now, I have a copy of it in the show notes below, or you can search the internet for Medicare form CMS-20027. Once Medicare has the form, a decision takes 60 days or less. That's their goal. So let's wrap up with a couple words of wisdom based on the experience from thousands of clients. So first, if you're scheduled for preventive care, your wellness visit, before you see the doctor, check with your mymedicare.gov account for the last time you had these preventive services and see if enough time has passed that you can have the tests again. If you know ahead of time, the ABN form will not be such a big deal. Also, if you go in for preventive care, you should assume that your doctor will want you to have some tests that Medicare does not cover and will request that you sign the ABN form so that they are protected financially. If you don't want this, tell the doctor up front not to provide any services that are not specifically part of your wellness visit. And then you could also choose the last item, the refusal on the ABN form, so that you're not obligated financially if your doctor gives you these services that are not preventive care. On occasion, when a doctor's office hands you a small mountain of forms to sign, and one of them is the ABN form, they assume you accepted the procedure, and they don't really look at it. They just put all the papers and file them later. And in that case, they may perform the procedure or test, but if you've marked that you don't want it, you don't have to pay for it. By the way, did you know that there's a supplement company that will pay all of your preventive care even if Medicare rejects your payments? And it's available in most states, just saying. Not all states, but most. Also, do not assume that if you must sign an ABN form that Medicare will not cover it. Some of your providers are just not in tune with Medicare, like this one. So this picture was on the wall at a Quest Diagnostics office when I was having some blood work done. It's absolutely incorrect. But I don't expect Quest to know much about Medicare. I do expect that they will ask a Medicare beneficiary to sign an ABN form every time they go in. The same if you go to a facility for an MRI or if you get home health care and so on. In fact, home health care and skilled nursing have a different form that serves the same purpose as the ABN. So don't be intimidated by the ABN form. I want you to be knowledgeable and confident. If you've ever been surprised by an ABN form, let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear your story. And if you have ideas on what topics that you would like me to cover this year, let me know in the comments below. I make these videos for you, and I will consider all of your ideas. And if you're curious about other topics and you can't wait for my video, feel free to check out the hundreds of detailed articles that I've written and published on my website, MedigapSeminars.org. That's MedigapSeminars.org. They're free, and you can even share them with your friends. So my suggestion is to first check the publications under the Resources tab that I have on the menu there. And if you can't find what you're looking for there, just use the search feature to see if I've an article on that subject. I'm Matthew Clausen with MedigapSeminars.org. Thank you for watching. And to do so, you fill out a form called a redemption request, a redemption.